That was definitely something that looked into or wanted to do, of just making sure that Asian female representation was at the forefront of this movie, just because that's kind of my experience. But I am grateful for them, because they could have been very upset and angry at me for not getting the straight A's. And they kind of had the opposite approach of like, yeah, now look at you now. You're not as smart as you thought you were. Now you actually have to work at it.
Who's going back to the motherland?
It's a big deal, going to your birth country.
We used to talk about it all the time when we were little, remember? Grand adventure to find your birth mother.
So proud of you.
White people. 这个大鸡小鸡随便你。
Joyride is a raunchy R-rated comedy featuring 4 people who go through a journey of identity and friendship and self-discovery. And there are some fun and raunchy wild moments, but there's also a lot of heart and emotion as well. Our cast and the characters, there are 3 Asian women, and one of our characters is non-binary. And so when we do refer to the characters, we sort of just say like 4 people, 4 friends. But there are, 3 of the characters are women, and especially being an Asian woman myself, that was definitely something that looked into or wanted to do, of just making sure that Asian female representation was at the forefront of this movie, just because that's kind of my experience. So when I went to Harvard, I kind of did the thing that you do when you go to Harvard, which is you kind of take the path of like, oh, I got into a really great school and now I want to do like the hardest thing possible. I did an internship at the time, an incredibly prestigious investment bank. And I was so excited to get this job. And I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to learn so much. It's going to be so fun. And also like now I really set up my career. Like my career is going to be stable and steady. And of course that bank was called Lehman Brothers. It's no longer a bank anymore, because a year and a half after I interned there, it went bankrupt and triggered a $700 billion government bailout. And so I started thinking, it's not even like the stable path, and it's not even the creative or fulfilling path. Like what do I want to do? I remember being a kid and like writing little short stories, and then anytime like my mom would like put it up on the refrigerator like with a magnet, I'd be like really proud of it. And so I'd always been interested in writing, but I had never seen it as a career. I didn't know anything about Hollywood, didn't know anything about TV writing, but I just started kind of writing scripts on the side and thinking maybe one day I'll get someone to read it. And essentially I ended up in Los Angeles, kind of like just sent a script out that I had written and ended up getting hired on a Canadian kids show. That was a really exciting moment of, hey, I'm actually going to get paid to write. Not paid a lot of money at the time, compared to finance, but at least this is something that's going to be professionally fulfilling. They were not very pushy at all. I think they were incredibly supportive of me doing this creative path. I think especially when I basically had been working a finance job and I said, hey, I'm gonna leave this job and go and try and work on this random Canadian kids show. I think they were a little bit worried at that moment, but they said like, hey, you know what, try it out. You never know what's gonna happen. Especially, at the time I was like 25 years old, and they thought, like this is the time in your life where you kind of try things out. So I'm always really grateful for them caring about my career, but not being too over the top, overbearing. I don't think they were like super stereotypical. I would say that growing up, I was definitely always a little bit of that crazy kid anyway, who was like raising their hand because they wanted to answer the question in school. And I remember I was going to go to private school for high school. I ended up at this school, and I thought I could just kind of coast through my straight A's. I ended up getting 2 C's. in math and science. And my mom was like basically laughing. She was just like, well, now like you actually have to study. You idiot, you know, you're like, you can't just like go into this school and not study. But I am grateful for them because they could have been very upset and angry at me for not getting the straight A's. And they kind of had the opposite approach of like, yeah, now look at you now. You're not as smart as you thought you were. Now you actually have to work at it. They are so happy and proud, I think, because it's so different than I think what a lot of people go through. I definitely think there are some jokes and things that they don't really understand or want to understand because it's a little gross. And I'm a little scared of them seeing this movie. I hope they'll enjoy it. I feel very excited by the fact that we've had a lot of success in the industry. Obviously, Everything Everywhere All at Once winning an Oscar was a really big boon. And then, but a couple years before that, Parasite winning an Oscar. I think all those things really do help. And I think especially with our movie and a lot of other kind of projects that are coming out after it, it's like you don't want to be known as just the one Asian movie, that we're making movies because we think this is a fun story, regardless of who's in it. I think the biggest thing is just to keep on writing. And I think that that's probably something that is said a lot, of just keep persisting in the creative fields that you're doing, whether it be sitcom writing or screenwriting or just writing short stories on your own. Because I do think that just any sort of creative outlet is always going to be not only maybe professionally fulfilling, but I think personally fulfilling as well. That's the biggest piece of advice. And it is a hard business to break into. And I do think like finding the people that you truly believe in and holding them close and just making all the connections you can to try and get in. That's always how you make it in this business. It's just meeting people, learning about their paths and their careers, and being as helpful as you can, and hopefully getting that opportunity yourself. I was a little bit like, oh my gosh, I hope I won't have to say anything in Chinese, because it's like, it's not that bad, but it's not that, I could not have a full-on conversation. 还可以吧，我没办法讲太多字 in like